Knowledge Expert hosted a webinar to show how Pega can help your organization track employee exposure and mitigate risk with the COVID-19 Employee Safety and Business Continuity Tracker. Let's take a look.
So here I log in as an employee, create a new risk assessment. Here the possibility to select a specific employee, which we removed because we thought that it is better to for a specific employee to be able to create the assessment just for himself rather than creating assessment for other employees, and to leave this functionality only for HR people. So here there are some pretty simple questions. And then there is a risk assessment. I am assessed as a high-risk person. And I have a risk assessment that normally should be updated after a certain number of days. I log in as a manager, and I can see that the user is in high risk. And what I can do here is to create some kind of actions from an action plan. So once we submit this, it does get into pending risk assessment. Basically, from an application point of view, that's it. COVID-19 risk assessment case and the IT service request case. Basically, there is just one assignment and then some kind of notification. We can see there is the part where we have the initial assessment, then the manage part, and then the monitoring part. We imported the employees. The data types that we use here, for example, is employee details. The system is using the email of the operator ID, email here, and then basically what happens is in the employee details table, the system checks against the email address that is listed in the operator ID, and then it's getting information about the user that has to be tested. This is a great accelerator, and we thank Pega for that. In our case, it was fairly simple and straightforward to implement and roll out the application because our company is fairly small still, and the organizational structure is not complex. What we think is something that requires attention in a bigger enterprise is the whole organizational structure and all the artifacts that are related to that. Because clearly in a big organization, there are surely different teams with different HR responsible living in different countries. So there might be some kind of data segregation issue because this is clearly medical data. There can be in European countries, for example, some GDPR challenges related to that. And clearly the attention in that case when implementing such a solution in a bigger organization is to create the organizational structure and all the artifacts related, such as, for example, different work use depending on the different members of the HR or other type of work groups and teams that might actually segregate some of the data if we don't want to show this data in a generic way. So if, for example, we want to have data segregated by country, then there is some kind of implementation on the top of that that need to make sure that this data is not visible to employees or to HR people living in a different country than the one where the user is self-assessing himself. There can be clearly some kind of UI improvement that can be done. So one thing that could be done, for example, here is having a list of the different guidelines per country, and then we could have the system automatically picking up those information from a database, from an internal database, where then each single employee would have the guideline for the country where he's living or working in. Or when again, we could then have the assessments that is based, in this case, basically the assessment and the questions are based per guideline. We could have also something that is a specialized type of rule, where the questions that are asked could be also adjusted to a specific country itself. The way that the decision table is then done, it's clearly after we perform the, again, this is going a bit into detail, this is why I asked whether whether people have Pega information or not. The different questions basically, which have positive, negative or a true false, this gives then, depending on the different setup, a result whether the risk is high, low or unknown.
Basically super simple, but that could be helpful to measure what's the effort without forgetting about things that will need to happen. And there is effort to be costed for the environment setup, 8.3 or 8.4. We are running on 8.4 with the app that is provided on the marketplace, authentication setup, email setup, user procurement, user maintenance, and then functionality that needs to be changed. That's, I think, where the heavy weight will be, depending on the organization, the complexity, and the effort that will be needed in terms of alignment with the HR department, if there is multiple of them. Anyway, removing the CDC context for EU, country-specific need, organizational structure change, work routing and management processing changes, possibly changing the COVID case and the IT request case as well. And then hardening of the solution for larger contexts. An example was this autocomplete dropdown or other elements that might be necessary to be looked at. And finally, security and GDPR testing and rollout including operation manual, training, info cards to the end user, and so on. From our experience, that's what were the heavy weights of the implementation, and we're going to put that available out there. If that can be of help and use, we are super happy. A sneak peek for what was the effort in our case. Basically, that's the information we wanted to share, and if that can be helpful for people to implement the app faster and with more outcome, we are super happy.